Hello and a good morning or a good afternoon, and welcome to our webinar today. Today we will be discussing the topic Fronius Tech Support Tools. Joining me today is my colleague Byron Kwadze. He's a technical sales advisor for the Southern African region. He's based in Johannesburg, South Africa. And myself, David Mwangi, the technical sales advisor for the Eastern African region. I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya. So I'll be taking the content in terms of the presentation today, and Byron will be in tech support, chat support. So if you have any questions during the course of this webinar, please fill them in the chat area of the questions tab. So our agenda for today, we are going to look at an overview of the various Fronius apps. Then we will discuss the Fronius SolarWeb as a service tool. We do know that SolarWeb is generally a monitoring platform, but it also has facilitation for remote service. So we are also going to look at Solar Online support, and at the end of that, we will also do a brief live demo of the Solar Online support. After that, we will discuss the Solar service, which is another interesting tool that you can use for both monitoring as well as troubleshooting of your installations. So let's get into it and have an overview of the various Fronius apps. But before you get there, as an installer, you definitely should be familiar with the Fronius website, because this website has a lot of useful information, including data sheets, operating instructions, softwares for the various inverters, as well as updates that are released from time to time for those firmwares. Then, of course, we have the trainings and webinars that have been planned or have taken place, so you can get access to most of this, as well as any certificates for the various products that are available at Fronius. So if you do require some certification for maybe submitting in a tender, you can get most of this directly from the Fronius website. And the way to access this is, of course, go to the Fronius website. And once you are there, we have 3 business units. So the business unit of interest would be the solar energy business unit. Once you are in the solar energy business unit, then there are also 3 categories for homeowners, business owners, as well as installers and partners. So as an installer, then you go to the installers and partners section. And once you click on that, you'll get also a sub-menu from products and solutions, technical data, info center, service and support. So service and support is what would be of most interest to you as an installer. And under that, you can get access to technical support area, the warranties, training, and webinars, as well as how to become a Fronius system partner or FSP. So therefore, the Fronius website already gives you a lot of knowledge and information in your hands that you can use in your day-to-day business. So getting into the Fronius apps, so we have 3 main apps that a lot of installers are familiar with. So we have the Solar.Start, which is the commissioning app that is used for all Fronius products. Then you have SolarWeb. This is the monitoring app. So this allows for monitoring and visualization of the various system data, as well as remote service. And then you have the Fronius Solar.SOS, or what is in long form Solar Online Support. So this is a service app and allows you to do service and troubleshooting of your various inverters that you have installed. So we will look at each of these apps in turn. And then, of course, we have the Solar.Service app. So maybe a lot of or some installers may not be familiar with this software, but this is also something that is available from Fronius, and you're going to look at the various use cases of Solar.Service later. So in terms of the technical support cycle, we envision a situation whereby having access to the various information and software applications from Fronius, ranging from the Fronius website, Solar.SOS as well as Solar.Service, you as an installer should be able to tackle a lot of the technical issues that might come up during or after the installation. However, if you still have some areas that are not clear, you also have access to the Fronius tech support unit in Austria. So there is a hotline that is provided, as well as an email address that you can reach the Fronius tech support unit on. So therefore, this cycle of ensuring that the installed system is always up and running, so is a trigger that can come from both the customer, who is the end user, or it can come from the installer who gets in touch with Fronius tech support. And then if a replacement part is required for service, then this is agreed on between the installer and Fronius tech support. And then the warranty for that is also determined. So if it's falling within the warranty, the normal warranty process will be followed. And if it's damaged or out of warranty, then the part that needs to be purchased will be purchased and replaced out of warranty. So let's get into Fronius SolarWeb. And in this case, we are going to emphasize Fronius SolarWeb for service. So with the Fronius SolarWeb, there are quite a number of possibilities for remote service. And to give you some better understanding of this is to look at the various sections or functionalities of SolarWeb, ranging from the permissions that you can give. So these are permissions that you can give once you install the system and you have registered it or connected it to SolarWeb. And you can give permissions that are from owner, supervisor, and guest. So if these do need to be changed at any one point in the future, this can also be done remotely without going to where the inverter is, and therefore that gives you also remote possibility to change or to give user rights for different systems in SolarWeb. In terms of firmware updates, you can also do quite a number of updates remotely from the Fronius SolarWeb portal. So this is just a click away, and the updates are available for the communication cards, which mean the data manager for the Snap inverters, as well as the pilot for the Gen 24 Plus and Tauro inverters, and the ON pilot. In SolarWeb, we also get the possibility to access various service messages, and these service messages will come with a brief description in terms of what that service message is about, as well as an analysis of all the state codes that the inverters are setting to SolarWeb. In SolarWeb, you can also remotely do data comparison. So this can be both real-time data as well as history data. And you can also look at what the energy balance looks like for any particular system. And you can also compare two systems that are, have closely related data as far as production is concerned. So therefore, looking at the hierarchy in SolarWeb, so you can have different permissions and rights, as I had mentioned before. So as the owner of the system, you have the possibility to adjust settings, and only one person can be the system owner in SolarWeb. So you can also do service in terms of updating software remotely from SolarWeb if you are the owner and you have the authorization to delete a particular PV system from SolarWeb as the owner. Then you have the supervisor, so you have all the rights that the owner has other than deleting the system from SolarWeb. You can also add as a supervisor, you can invite a guest, or you can also invite another supervisor into SolarWeb. You can also have a guest access only that gives only read access to the system, and this is done through a link generation directly from SolarWeb. So as mentioned, if you want to change the permissions, you have to access the system, and the status has to be at least supervisor for you to be able to change the various permission levels. as well as to do to perform service. So and that is basically done at the permissions section. Once you go to SolarWeb, you go to settings, then you go to permissions, then there you can do adjustments of the various required permission levels. Looking at the software updates that are available or possible from SolarWeb directly, so you can do this remotely as mentioned. So once you access the particular system that you want to check for updates, then you go to settings, and then under settings, you're going to go to components. In components, you can see for a particular device, for instance, this Home Pilot, that the updated or the installed software version is 1.0.24-1, but there is a newer version of software that is available that is 1.0.25-3, and therefore it's very easy from SolarWeb to click the update button once you have selected the particular product to be updated, and the update process will go on to completion. So the only thing that you have to really make sure is that where the product, whether it's the Home Pilot or the inverter is installed, that there is a good internet connection. The next step is the availability of the various firmware updates for the different components. So as mentioned, you can do an update for the data communication components, which are the data manager and the pilot. You can also do for the inverter directly, the Home Pilot, as well as for the overall system. And of course, there are continuous improvements in the firmwares. So we do recommend highly that you always check from SolarWeb whether a particular product or inverter has a new firmware release. And the Fronius recommendation is to always keep the components up to date for the best performance. So for this kind of updates, you do not really need to get in touch with Fronius. This is something that you can do fully on your own. So as I said before, you can also get a full listing of the various service messages, including a description of what that service message is all about in SolarWeb. So you can access that going through the message center of that particular site or installation. And then under the message, the service messages, you can see both by date, the data logger ID from where that service message originated, the device name, and so forth. So the service message description will allow you then to be able to track the various errors that your system might set to SolarWeb from time to time. If you do not get a proper description or you are not able to fully analyze a particular service message in SolarWeb, then you can go further to the Fronius Solar Online Support Tool, which is SOS, which we highly recommend that all our installers have access to. So you just need to register, and you can actually use the same details that you're using in SolarWeb as far as the email address and the password to be able to access the Solar Online Support Tool. So, but we will be looking at the SOS tool later. In SolarWeb, you can also do a remote analysis of the data, so you can immediately recognize whether there is a deviation from optimal performance. So when you go to real-time analysis, so you can see a color-coded description of what the systems are doing. So looking at this particular example, for instance, we can see that if all the inverters listed are showing a color code green, this means that the inverters are performing optimally. If they were to go to yellow, for instance, then there it would mean that there is a possibility for a 10 to 50% deviation from optimal performance. And then the color code red would indicate that that particular inverter or component is deviating by more than 50% from the optimal performance. However, please note that a temporary deviation is not necessarily a mandatory indicator for an error. So there could be temporary, deviations due to a number of factors ranging from maybe shading or dust cover or things like that, or irradiation levels, which can be corrected once the shade goes away, for instance, or once the irradiation improves. If the deviation is due to things like shading, then you have to go to site and make sure that the modules are cleaned. So that would not necessarily mean that the inverter is faulty or even the modules are faulty. So if you do notice that, especially you have more than 50% deviation, this is something that would necessitate you as an installer to go to site and have a look at why there is such a big deviation from optimal performance. From SolarWeb directly, you can also do quite a number of extensive performance check on different channels, because for each product or for each system that is installed or updated in SolarWeb, you can analyze the various channels, and these can be both on the AC or the DC side. And if you have a battery or a non-pilot connection, you can also analyze those channels independently in SolarWeb. So, and the data there is updated every 5 minutes. So you can have a lot of data that you can look at to be able to check whether all your channels are performing optimally. In terms of individual remote troubleshooting, this can also be further enhanced by the channel analysis. So you can see, for instance, what is the MPPT output level. If you have a SIMO inverter, for instance, that has 2 MPPTs, you can be able to see what is the voltage for MPPT1 and what is the voltage for MPPT2. And if you are sure that, for instance, you have the same number of strings or arrays connected to each MPPT, and you see there is a big deviation, then there also you can have some checks done on the site to ensure that everything is fine as far as the modules are concerned, feeding the voltage to the inverter. So that's about it for the Fronius SolarWeb and what you can do remotely as far as monitoring and service of the system is concerned. So now we are going to look at the Solar Online Support Tool. So what is the Fronius Solar Online Support Tool? So this is a fast, informative, and easy to use tool. It's a self-service tool for technicians as well as customers. It is available 24/7 without any waiting periods, because as you might know already, when you want to make a call to Fronius Tech Support, or if when you do write an email to Fronius Tech Support, you do not necessarily get an immediate answer. But with the Fronius SOS, you're able to access this tool 24/7, and it has a lot of resources for installers as well as end customers to be able to troubleshoot the various state codes or error codes that might crop up in your systems. So you can also do data query and check warranty information for your various products installed, as well as check the case history that you have followed up in SOS, as well as do comprehensive troubleshooting. If at the end of the day you do require an exchange of a particular PCB, then that exchange process can also be initiated directly out of SOS. And this is why, as I mentioned before, we really highly recommend all our installers to have an SOS account, because this will make it very, very easy for you to troubleshoot your systems without even having to go in touch with Fronius Tech Support. But in terms of the outlook, the SOS version that we are using currently had a predecessor. So the first version looked like is shown to the left, but in essence, the way you access the two platforms is the same. So you do need an email address and you do need a password. In short, therefore, meaning that for both the older version and the newer version, you still need to create a user account. But in terms of the arrangement of the various functions or tools accessible from SOS, we have quite a bit of a difference between the older version and the newer version. For all these tools that we are discussing today, whether it's the SolarWeb, SOS, and Solar.Start, you can all download them from Google Play Store or App Store. Depends on the type of phone you're using, and therefore it means you do not necessarily have to use this tool on a laptop or a tablet. This can also be used on your smartphones. So in terms of the desktop version, the new version of the SOS is laid out quite nicely. So as you can see here, this is just a screenshot So you have starting from troubleshooting and other sub-menus. So you can go to cases, you can go to device data, you can initiate a next stage or a repair process. You have an access to various manuals, as well as a lot of support document for installers. And at the very end, you also have access to a lot of YouTube videos that you can use. So once you want to create a user account for SOS, so this is 100% a digital process. So no written declaration of consent is required. And like as I said before, using the Fronius IAM registration platform, you can use the same details that you are using for accessing SolarWeb, for instance, to create an SOS account. So therefore, that process requires no written confirmation or consent. If you have the possibility to operate for two companies as one employee, so you can do very easily switch the account. So if you, for instance, have a customer A that is served by customer X and another customer B that is served by customer Y, and these two companies are being serviced by one employee or one individual, then this one individual can very easily in SOS be able to switch from the account from company X to the account for company Y and be able to look at what are the case histories for customer A and customer B respectively. So that account switcher functionality is already there and embedded in SOS. In terms of troubleshooting, this is actually the highlight of the SOS tool, because the primary function of SOS is to make troubleshooting of the various issues very easy for you. So this has a step-by-step instructions to ensure that the troubleshooting is successfully done. And we are going to look at a live example of the troubleshooting process. So once you have fully troubleshooted and the issue is completely settled, then you can get a report sent back to Fronius to inform tech support that the recommendations given in SOS have assisted for that particular case that you are resolving. You can also get a lot of push notifications and messages coming to your phone, and these would include things like available update news as well as errors and fault messages. So you can get a list of all these push notifications, which you can then also launch directly from your phone to be able to check the various operational state or fault conditions of your inverters. In terms of communication with Fronius tech support, this is also possible directly in SOS. So you can create a message that is related to a particular case that you have created in SOS. And therefore, this can put you in direct contact with tech support for that particular case that you have created. In addition to that, you are able to set pictures as well as attachments directly in this SOS portal or platform. And therefore, this makes the process of communication between yourself as an installer and Fronius tech support very, very simple. So you can make full use of these functionalities as opposed to when you have to set an email with the attachments. So what I can tell you is that when you do set your pictures and attachments as well as launch cases in Fronius SOS, you get a higher priority rating, or your case is responded to faster than someone who sent a normal email. If you have initiated an exchange process, you can also see what is the delivery timelines, and also have an overview of what are these spare parts that have been shipped over to you. Or if it's an exchange inverter, you can also see directly out of SOS. And therefore, this would also make the process of managing your time a lot better by planning your work in a much transparent way. So therefore, once you're using tech support, you can be able to see, for instance, for this particular case, that your package is on the way for delivery, and it was ordered on a Wednesday, May 23. And you can also see what is the tracking ID for that particular package. So therefore, if it's coming by DHL or some other courier service, you can also have that particular ID that is to be tracked for that particular shipment. As I mentioned before, the SOS tool or platform has a lot of manuals and videos that are of great use to installers. So these are available also as well as HTML5 formats. So you have a lot of installation instructions, installation manuals, service instructions, as well as I said before, short how-to clips, how to do videos, as well as the various YouTube videos that have been done, including webinars. You can also have a case overview depending on how many cases you have launched directly in SOS. So you can also filter by a time period, for instance, or by product name or project name. And you can have an overview of all the current and the past cases that you have launched directly out of SOS. And therefore, in terms of also managing the various case issues that you have launched for different products or systems, you can have a direct overview of all of this in SOS, which makes that process also quite easy. In addition to all that, you can also query device data directly in SOS. And this would show you what are the warranty conditions or warranty activated for that particular product. As you know, once you do an installation, you have to extend your warranty from the 2-year standard warranty to maybe 5 in Fronius SolarWeb. And once you have done that, you can query that data for that particular device directly in Solar Online Support, and it will tell you what are the warranty conditions and the warranty valid until which date. You will also be able to see what is the name of that particular system in SolarWeb for which that inverter is being used. So right now, I would like to give you a quick demo on the SOS platform. So all you need to do is to register for an account. So here I already have this link linked up to SOS. So therefore, once you have opened up your account in SOS, if you're going to do troubleshooting, the first thing that you do require is a serial number of a product that you're going to troubleshoot. In this case, I have a product serial number that is 312 and then 53909. And once you type that in, SOS is going to look up that data, and it should be able to tell you which product family or product group that serial number belongs to. So in this case, the product group is a SIMO inverter in the power class 10 kilowatts to 24 kilowatts. And then most importantly, you have to indicate what is the state code that you're going to troubleshoot for. So in this case, the state code that I would like us to use as an example is 401. And once you click on enter, the tool or the portal is going to give you quite a number of recommendations. And as far as what the possible source of that error could be. So in this case, the error is a power stack communication error, and there are quite a number of causes for that. So cause number one could be a communication error, and this is where really Fronius SOS portal becomes very useful, because before you contact Fronius tech support in Austria, you would have gone through quite a number of recommendations or suggestions to troubleshoot a particular error that has emanated from your inverter. So in this case, as an example, there could be a communication error, and the solution that is suggested as a first solution is to restart the inverter both on the AC and the DC side, and then to reconnect. If that does not resolve the error, then you have another possible cause, which could be a possible hardware fault due to low isolation on the DC side. So therefore, the suggestion would be to make sure that the isolation figures are okay. And this has to be done by checking the DC to earth connection as far as isolation is concerned, as well as the DC minus to earth isolation figures. If still that does not resolve the issue, another suggestion would be as a cause of failure, a ribbon cable between filter board and the AC board being faulty or not properly connected. So in this case, the recommendation is to check the ribbon cables between the SIMO filter board and the SIMO AC board. Another possibility is that the receivable PC board is not properly plugged in, and therefore you have to check the receivable. For the for the snap inverters, the receivable is the card just below the display, because it's actually holding also the display for you. So you have to check whether this is properly connected or plugged. If all those suggestions then do not resolve your issue, then this is the point that you need to contact Fronius Tech Support, because the cause number 8 that you have to consider would be hardware defect, and therefore the suggestion as a solution would be to contact Fronius Tech Support. And therefore in this case, all you have to do is to click on contact here, and then you can also request an exchange or repair process. If some of these have resolved the particular case that you're working on, then you can click on resolved, and that it's going to send an email directly or a message to Fronius Tech Support, and they are going to know that for that particular case that was under state code 401 that you are troubleshooting for that particular inverter, that particular suggestion was able to resolve that particular error for you. So as I mentioned before, you can also look at what are the various cases that you have troubleshooted before, and you can have a list by date, and you can see what is the status of each one of them. So you can also see the date that each of these cases was created, and if you click on any case ID, you are able to see what are the particular details, whether the case is resolved or not. So in this case, we can see that the case is still open. You can see the date created, as I said before, the case title for which inverter, the product family, the serial number for that particular inverter, if it has warranty until which date, and then what is the state code that was being troubleshooted for that particular case number, and then any other usable or useful descriptions. If attachments are required, then they would also be shown here, and these are the same attachment that you had done before. So when it comes to device data, as I said, all you need to enter here is the serial number for that particular device that you are troubleshooting, and depending on the various data that is connected. So for this particular case, because this is a serial number from a customer that I'm using, we will not put that serial number here because that is going to give a lot of privileged info out. But if you have a serial number, then you just put that serial number here, and it will show you all the pertinent details, including warranty and system name in SolarWeb, including also the data manager ID for that particular inverter. You can also have access to manuals, and you all need to do is to, for instance, come back here and enter the same serial number that we were using. So 312-53909. And once you put that, you can choose which language. So we say English here, and then we click on enter. So there you can find all the manuals that are related to that particular inverter. So you can have access to the data sheets. So you can see all the data sheets that are applicable, installation instructions. If you would like to view any webinars as far as commissioning process for that particular inverter is concerned, then you can have a lot of information here that can be quite useful for you. Another part that has been recently added to SolarWeb, to Fronius.SOS, is the recovery key. And this would allow you to recover the various passwords for the various inverters. And this would mean the user admin or service password for the data manager, as well as the customer or technician passwords for the Gen 24 or Tauro inverters that are using the pilot card. So the prerequisite for this, for you to use this recovery key functionality, is to have the system listed in SolarWeb as you as a supervisor or an owner. That is the same account that is accessing the SOS tool has to be listed in SolarWeb as the owner or supervisor of that particular system. Then what you do need is to specify whether you are recovering that data or password for the data manager or the hybrid manager. And then here you're going to require the data logger ID. Then down there you enter, are you going to recover the user password, admin password, or the service password. Once you are done with that, you're going to put a key that is also displayed on your inverter here. So here you can put, depending on what was displayed as a recovery key in your inverter. And once that is done, you're going to generate a recovery key. And with this recovery key, you can then go back to the inverter and reset the particular password that you want to reset. Maybe you had a technician who was working for your company and they left and they did not leave you with a password for a particular inverter. This is now a very simple process for recovering the various passwords that can be used for setup and commissioning of both the Snap inverters as well as the Tauro and Gen 24 Plus inverters. So having said all that, I think that covers it as far as the SOS tool is concerned. So we go back to the main presentation and continue where we left off. And we will continue with the Solar Online Support Tool, or the Solar Service, sorry. So what is the Solar Service Tool? So this is a tool, as I had mentioned before, that simplifies the servicing and fault analysis of your various products that are installed. So it provides a clear overview of the PV system status. It can be used to configure your inverters. And most importantly, if you're going to do an installation using a Fronius sensor card or sensor box, then you do need the Fronius Solar.Service software for you to be able to configure the various sensors that are going to be used. And for this, please refer to the user manual for the Solar.Service that is going to show you a step-by-step process of how to configure the sensor box and the various sensors. The beauty about the Solar.Service tool is that the full functionality is also available remotely, and this software can be downloaded from the Fronius website free of charge. So once we share this presentation, the slides, please, if you would like to download the Solar.Service software, use this link that is provided here. And this software can be installed in any computer that is running a Windows operating system. In terms of the configuration, it would look something like this. So starting from where the Fronius.Service software is installed, you can have a direct link to your inverter. And this is either through a USB connection or an RS-232 connection. So all that is required here then is an IP address for connecting the inverter to your laptop. This tool, Solar.Service, sorry, can also be accessed remotely through the internet, and therefore the laptop is going through a router for an internet connection, and then you can remotely access and configure or make some changes to settings in a Fronius inverter in this manner. And the requirement on the Fronius inverter is that it should have at least a data manager 2.0 in it, because this data manager card is the one that is going to facilitate the communication from the inverter to your laptop through the SOS, the Solar.Service tool or software. And then if you are accessing then remotely, that connection will be completed through a router for an internet connection. So what are the various use cases for Solar.Service? This software can be used both on site or remotely. And when you are on site, you can do or check the inverter from the Solar.Service tool. And the other light version inverters that are connected to a master inverter then can also be accessed through the SolarNet ring. So in this case, just like we are familiar with the SolarNet ring, all the inverters that are accessed or connected to the master inverter can be accessed through the SolarNet ring. For remote maintenance, As I said before, all that is required is an internet connection to the inverter, and then the system data will be called up through the data manager. And this therefore allows you to do remote adjustments and servicing of the inverter or the entire PV system. In terms of using Solar.Service for analysis as well as servicing, you can have a quick overview of the system status. Then all the relevant data from all Fronius components is available at a glance. It will also give you a clear visualization for easy pinpointing of defects, if there are any defects within the installation, and then easy setting of most relevant inverter functions. So all those can be done directly in Solar.Service, and then all settings can be altered, and any servicing and maintenance work can be done remotely through the Solar.Service, as long as you do have an internet connection. So if you'd like to use the Solar.Service for remote management of your system, or servicing, or changing any settings, please get in touch with the Fronius Tech Support, because here you might also require to do some port forwarding processes for the data manager. Then overall, you also get quite a transparent listing of all the state codes that do occur in your setup or in your inverter. In terms of the advantages of the Solar.Service, it saves you a lot of time and money, because you can see the status of the Fronius components all at once. You can do adjustments and service even remotely. It's also giving you a lot of convenience, because all the system data can be displayed on your PC, and this is independent of the monitoring platform. So with Solar.Service, you can still have access to the most pertinent data from your system, even when not connected directly to Fronius SolarWeb. Then in terms of efficiency, it allows you to identify and rectify faults a lot quicker, and therefore this means that you have less system downtime, and therefore the system is kept or producing higher yields a lot faster when something has happened and you have troubleshooted using the Solar.Service tool or software. So, and that basically brings us to the end of our webinar for today. And for more information regarding the various Fronius products, please have a look at our website, as already mentioned before in the beginning. For all the webinars that we have covered before, even this one, you can go to YouTube at the African playlist, Sub-Sahara playlist. So we have a lot of topics there that have been uploaded, and you can have an overview of all those in YouTube. For direct contact, please get in touch with the relevant contact person. For Western Africa, this is Cyprian Okolo, who is based in Lagos, Nigeria. For Southern Africa, please get in touch with Byron. And for the Eastern African region, please do get in touch with myself, David Mwangi. So, and with that, we have come to the end of our webinar for today. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all for taking your time to join us today. And I hope that you have learned new ways of supporting yourselves technically, even without having to go through Fronius Tech Support, and therefore improving the process of maintaining or servicing your systems independently. But of course, as I mentioned before, if you do require really to get in touch with Fronius Tech Support, the channels are still open. But with these tools that we have discussed today, you can really put yourself a step ahead of everyone else by ensuring that you are fully conversant with all these tools that we have discussed today. So for now, I'd like to thank you very much, and I do wish you a good rest of the day, and see you for our next webinar.